I grew up in New York in the Catskills. And as a child, I ran everywhere. I loved to run back and forth around our property. My track coach, his mentor was one of the best track coaches for 400 meters in all of history, which was Clyde Hart. So my coach mentor was Clyde Hart. So I came from basically a 400-meter legacy in college, had a great coach. My daughter, let's see, she's 15, so it was about 4 years ago. She said to me, Mom, I want to run the 400 like you did in college. So I said, all right, well, let's get out on the track and see, let's do 1 400 and see where we'll start. I'll do it with you. And so we got out on the track and we ran one lap, died, fell out at the end. It was like the hardest lap of my life. 4 years later, I went from barely being able to finish a lap to being the best in the world in my event for my age. And I'm 44 now. So what I tell people is what I'm doing now is I'm changing my genetics because, you know, there are a lot of people who have what we call raw talent. They can pretty much just get out there and they're fast automatically due to their genetics. But then there's others who have to work really hard. And I think that with the proper nutrition and the proper training, you can change your genetic expression to, you know, do who knows what. Sky's the limit. I'm on a lot of relays with national records, 4x4, 4x1. I don't even run the 100, but I'm on that record. I don't use just one energy system. The 400 meters uses 3 energy systems. It uses the ATP creatine phosphate system for your sprinting start. Then we're in the lactic phase, and then we finish in the endurance phase. So I have to train all 3 energy systems. I am unique that I do run on all 3 energy systems, but you know, I do need that glycogen in my muscles to sprint. However, what I found is that I thrive off of a meat-based diet. Like, I absolutely thrive. And I learned this style originally from my mentor, Charles Poliquin. If anybody looks him up, he's a legend in strength coaching and also nutrition for athletes. Several Olympic gold medalists in, you know, so many, like nearly every sport, basically. I can't remember exactly how many, but hundreds of Olympic athletes. Anyway, so had to give a shout out to my mentor, Charles, because he really shaped my life in taking meat and making it in the forefront. In fact, he introduced me to the meat and nuts breakfast. So a lot of people don't even think, oh yeah, I should have steak for breakfast. But he was one of the first people, I think, to pioneer the approach that it fires the neurotransmitters, dopamine, acetylcholine. So you really get a lot of energy from having meat for breakfast. So that being said, I take our local Maui cattle company grass-fed steak, grown right here on Maui. They have about 4 or 5 ranches that come together and produce this really, really great local beef. And I cook it ahead of time, and I take about 4 pounds with me to a track meet. And I have it all sliced up. So when I'm at my meet, I have my little baggie of steak in my little cooler bag. And about an hour to an hour and a half, depending on how long the check-in process is, I eat my steak right before I run. So my race fuel and my training fuel, a lot of times, not always, sometimes I rotate my meat for my training, but for my race, it's always grass-fed beef is my training fuel. I'm a metabolic analytics practitioner. So my job is to tell athletes what to eat. I have several Olympian clients as well myself. Professional athletes in different sports. Some of them I can say who they are, some of them I can't. Some very, very famous athletes. But I tell them what to eat to enhance their athletic performance. And what I found is that they completely change and thrive off of a high protein, high fat energy source. Now, the way to do that, though, is they have to train their body kind of in a, you know, how people go keto or something like this. They have to train their body to respond to that. So if you're carb loading all the time and then all of a sudden, you know, for 2 days you eat carnivore or keto, you might not get the same results. You have to actually train your metabolic pathways. But it doesn't take very long for that to happen. I would say within 2 weeks. So one thing, the first thing that happens when you eat high protein, high fat is that your body fat decreases. And when your body fat decreases, you eliminate a lot of the toxins that are stored in your body fat. So then your cells have better communication. They can communicate properly so that you can your muscles can act accordingly. So the reason why the steak works is, one, I've already primed my body to be able to digest protein and fats very efficiently. In fact, there is a lot of research out there that says if you are adapted to high protein, high fat, and you eat fat before you race, even in the ATP area, you are going to oxidize fat more efficiently and more fast than if you're eating carbohydrates before. In fact, there are a lot of studies too that show if you eat carbohydrates right before you race or your exercise performance, you will inhibit the fat oxidation pathways. And so one of the best ways to transport fatty acids for fuel is L-carnitine. And carnitine is very, very high, as we know, in meat. And so I think that by eating the steak, of course, our body synthesizes carnitine and we have carnitine stores. But if you also consume dietary carnitine, you enhance the carnitine transport for the fatty oxidation. So this is why I'm able to sustain this fuel. I mean, one of the reasons. The other reason would be carnicine. The other reason would be taurine. I mean, I can't think of a more perfect package for athletic performance than steak, than beef, than red meat, really. Because we could argue back and forth, what really says the answer is the results. And look at the results you're getting. And look at the results I'm getting. You know, I'm 44 and I run faster than all of the Hawaii high school girls in the whole state. Like, that shouldn't be happening. I shouldn't be able to do that. I just studied with my strength coach, who's one of the best strength coaches in the country, Malcolm from Source Performance in Arizona, Malcolm William. But he scanned me with one of it's not DEXA scan, it's the other one, in body, I think. And my visceral fat was 3. And he was telling me like 10 is average, 5 is absolutely outstanding, and you're 3. And also I'm Native American by ethnicity. And so I'm not 100% into eating like your ancestors, but in a way I am, because we all have, those same ancestors basically, and they all ate meat. I'm not 100% carnivore all year round. And I basically follow the seasons. So I will cycle carnivore heavily in the winter, as did, I believe, our ancestors. I do eat berries and nuts, particularly in the summer. I eat more berries in the summer. My diet consists of, it's not keto at all. It's not that I'm against keto, but I find for athletes, like you pointed out, the protein and particularly red meat has the amino acid profile for better athletic performance and better health overall. It's really funny because I'm getting a little off, but if you look at all the different components that I mentioned, makes me race faster: the carnitine, the carnicine, the taurine, B12, folate, all of it. All of those things separately, when you look up the medical journal articles, they all help heart disease, they all help obesity, they all help diabetes, all the major diseases. Separately, they'll say, we used carnitine supplementation for cardiomyopathy. They just list all of these things. So it's beyond me how some people can say, oh, well, that's not good for you. I do high protein. I'm 148 pounds, so I do 200 grams of protein a day. I'm in a training cycle right now where I'm gaining muscle mass, about 3 or 4 pounds of muscle mass is my goal. And so I will do 220 grams of protein at least. And then my fat will be, usually it's around 70 grams. It's more like 125 during this period. And then my carbohydrates will be less than 70 grams per day. And that's one of the other components of why the steak works before you race, is you have that really, really awesome source of healthy fats in the red meat. When you eat higher protein, your hydrochloric acid in your stomach and your gastrin that's produced increases. And so you actually can digest your food better. So I always tell people, like, hey, if you have digestive issues, going carnivore is a great way to actually digest your food, because when you're eating more protein, your body produces more acid to break that down. And so I'm able to digest my steak very well before my race. And in fact, when you eat carbohydrates, all it does is expand in your stomach and make you kind of feel bloated. So it's not really satisfying you. It's just filling up your stomach, and it's not giving you the nutrient density that the steak does. So you're able to break it down when you increase your protein. My doctor tells me I have the blood work that people strive for. So they're just astounded. I mean, you know, the medical community, they're used to seeing sick people all the time. So I just get my blood work done every year because I want to see what's going on. And it's every year they're just like, oh, you know, showing everybody, look at these numbers, look at these numbers. So no, I actually think, again, like you said, the key to this is the carnitine and all of the protective factors in red meat. The carnitine is going to transport those fatty acids. So if you're metabolically challenged and you're having a hard time losing body fat, I mean, the red meat is the way to go. So I would say stick with that more than the other one. Again, I would just stick with the red. I'm just a really big advocate of red meat. And I say this because my doctor also sends me his patients when he can't figure out what's wrong with them. So when they have autoimmune issues, he always says, I'm trained in Western medicine. I deal with black and white. If it's this, I prescribe this. If it's something where the blood work is fine and I can't figure it out, then I send you to Cynthia. And so I assess them with my analysis, and I find that a lot of times they're missing the zinc and the B12, particularly from the red meat, and they're eating too many grains, which have grains and vegetables, and fruits a lot of times, which have the phytates that are binding to the zinc and binding to the iron and binding to all the essential nutrients that we need. As soon as I take them off of the grains and the excess fruit and I change their diet to red meat, which, you know, again, a lot of people think, oh, I was told it was bad for me, so that's why I didn't eat it. As soon as I change them, things like neuropathy, I had one lady who threw up on her cycle every month for 8 years, and then I changed her diet and supplements for like 2 months, or sorry, it was less than 2 months. It was about 8 weeks, and she never was sick again, and it's been years. So yeah, I like when you say meat heals, that really, really resounds with me, because I have literally healed so many autoimmune issues with meat. And if it's a really severe autoimmune problem, then I definitely am encouraging them to do carnivore. When you eat higher protein, your gut changes to the bacteroides. You have a greater prevalence of that. Now, when you're obese or you're carrying extra body fat, you have more firmicutes, and this is not good. You're firmicute overload. And so when they found that when you lose body fat and by increasing protein, you change your gut microbiome dominance. And this leads to if you look into the literature on that specific series of bacteria, the bacteroides, they will help burn body fat, which is fascinating to me. Now, if you eat a carbohydrate-rich diet, a lot of grains, a lot of breads, a lot of fruits, a lot of vegetables, that sort of thing, you have a prevalence of Prevotella. It's associated with almost every single disease out there. Obesity, diabetes, heart disease, autoimmune disorders, chronic inflammation, 100%. If you Google Prevotella, chronic inflammation, you'll find all the research. I train 3 to 4 days a week. I train in the morning running, and then I recover, and then I train strength training in the evening. So I really am burning a lot, and I need to keep up with that, to keep my muscle mass. So that's, the other thing is consuming high protein prevents you from taking the protein from your muscles. So you can maintain a certain amount of muscle mass without like protein catabolism.